Hello and welcome to Poetry in Style. So today we are going to talk about Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, known worldwide for his magnificent beard, but also for his beautiful poems. So Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was born on February 27th in 1807 in Portland, Maine, USA, not Portland, Oregon, because we have two Portlands in the USA, and passed away at the age of 75 years old in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So these American poets, they are really obsessed with Massachusetts. I don't understand why. So I talk about this poet today, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, because one of my subscribers, or at least viewers, commented on one of my previous videos and gave the names of different poets, American poets, and that was one of the names. And by the way, I wanted to thank you for that, because this is something I really love. It's people giving me suggestions, people are giving me advice, so to accompany me in my journey of discovering poetry all around the world, especially obviously American poetry, English poetry, or like the English-speaking world poetry, but also poems from different countries, from different regions. So I bought this book actually recently because this is like a complete collection of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. As you can see, it's written very small. It looks like an old dictionary, and there are like several poems in one page, which makes it a little bit difficult to read, to be honest. And but I chose one poem. But before we jump onto the poem, I just wanted to read quickly what's written on the back of the book, because I found it interesting. So Longfellow's poetry is learned, compassionate and courageous. In his lifetime, he was recognized as America's greatest poet, and though, like many writers, he became temporarily less fashionable after his death, he is now seen as one of the giants of American literature. A great admirer, of the European tradition, Longfellow contributed greatly to the sophistication of American intellectual life against the contemporary grain of isolationism, and also to what is now called the American dream. So after that, they cite the different works that he did, and saying that he had a very unique poetic voice, which is great. And I actually really like his poetry because it's very positive. And I like when they say that he's learned, compassionate and courageous. One of the things you can really see in his poetry is compassion. So this compassionate quality is very important, because one of the things I'm trying to do with this YouTube channel is to talk about poetry in order to see what we can learn from it, and how we can, actually improve our lives based on the poems that we read. And another thing I find interesting is like going against the grain of isolationism. So that's also one of the things that I find really interesting in poetry, is about creating a bridge of understanding between two persons, actually several persons, and sometimes showing that, I understand you, I got your back, or here is how I'm feeling, please understand me, and so you can understand me, or I can understand you, and it creates more understanding. And the poems of Longfellow really create that. So I chose one poem called Rainy Days, and I'm gonna see it, we're gonna look at it together, and then I'm gonna tell you why I chose that poem. And in the meantime, let's start with a sip of coffee, because even in rainy days, you need a good cup of coffee, and I would say especially in rainy days. So as you can see here, we've got several poems on one page. It does look like an old dictionary, so it made it a little bit difficult to actually show you the poem. I thought about actually printing it on a page, but I bought that book for a reason. So I felt I would get you along in the journey, and we're gonna just deal with the way the book is. So the rainy day, the day is cold and dark and dreary. It rains and the wind is never weary. The vine still clings to the mouldering wall, but at every gust the dead leaves fall. and the day is dark and dreary. My life is cold and dark and dreary. It rains and the wind is never weary. My thoughts still cling to the mouldering past, but the hopes of youth fall thick in the blast, and the days are dark and dreary. Be still, sad heart, and cease repining. Behind the clouds is the sun still shining. Thy fate is the common fate of all. Into each life some rain must fall. Some days must be dark and dreary. The day is cold and dark and dreary. It rains and the wind is never weary. Interesting. Be still, sad heart, and cease repining. Behind the clouds is the sun still shining. Thy fate is the common fate of all. Into each life some rain must fall. Some days must be dark and dreary. So first of all, I'm gonna just clear one word. To repine is to feel or express this content. I hate to clear that word because a lot of my viewers are non-English speakers, and I'm non-English speakers myself. So I had to clear that word, but I found out a really beautiful word. One of the things I really like about the poetry of Longfellow, despite using a few words here and there that might be literary or old-fashioned, it is very sophisticated, yet it is easy to understand. Most of his poems, like if you read some poems from like great writers, and if you're not an English speaker, even if you're an English speaker, you might have a lot of problems understanding them. But the poems of Longfellow, in my opinion, are pretty straightforward and beautiful. And why they are sophisticated, they are simple and easy to understand, which I really like. So it's very simple. Today actually it's not a rainy day here in my little beloved Belgium. It is actually very sunny and it's quite hot. It's the end of summer and we had a beautiful summer. But sometimes, especially in my country and the countries around, or in many places in the world, some days are dark and dreary. Some rain must fall. And obviously we are not talking about the weather here. We're not talking about what comes from the sky. We are talking about how you feel. The rain obviously being like a metaphor, to tell you that some days might be just bad. It rains within, being depressed, being sad, all those things. I think that it's important to read one of those poems because obviously, even though I'm trying to encourage people and tell people to have a lot of courage, I think one of the ways to remain courageous is to accept that sometimes you might just feel bad. Sometimes you might wake up and you will not want to wake up. Sometimes you will go to work, or sometimes you will help people, sometimes you will do things, and you might not want to do it. And you might be on the train, ready to break up, ready to break into tears, ready to feel, to cry in front of everybody. But despite that, you will keep on going. And I think that's the message of that poem. Some days must be dark and dreary, but behind the clouds, that carry the rain, the sun is still shining. So keep on going, keep on going. Don't worry, it's all right to feel down sometimes. If you're feeling down right now, I want to tell you, I understand you. I have felt like that myself, and a lot of people around the world. This is the fate of all, as it says. Let me just find the page again. This is it's a thy fate is the common fate of all. We've all had those days, but still it's about not giving up. It's about continuing, and then after that you will have great days. And sometimes when you have one of those days, sometimes when you are feeling down, just say, fine, I'm feeling down. This today is not my day, but I'm still gonna get the best out of that day. And that's all I wanted to tell you. I'm gonna sometimes in the future find different poems from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, because I think it's a great poet, and you should really read it. As you can see, it's a big book. How many pages there? Like very, we've got here 800. I mean, this is white, those are white pages. This is obviously the index, but still with the index, 886 pages, and it's written in small. Anyway, so you will need some courage if you want to read the whole book, but you can still read a few poems here and there. And yeah, so I hope your day is not dark and dreary, but if it is, it's all right. You know, we got your back, keep on going. That's it.